Star Citizen is a game that gained the reputation of trying to achieve everything while taking forever in doing so. And it is true that the least that we can say about its development, and this is coming from someone who has been a backer of the project since November of 2012, is that it has indeed been a bumpy ride, especially at this moment when the developers at Cloud Imperial Games are trying to stabilize their pillar piece of technology, persistent entity streaming, which is going to make every consequence of player actions ever made persist. More on that later. That being said, more than 10 years have passed and well over $500 million have been collected for more than 4 million backers, and yet the game is still in alpha phase with plenty of promised features that remain to be done, and this raises the following question. What is exactly Star Citizen trying to achieve, and what is it going to take to achieve this vision? This is what we are going to talk about in today's video. Hi, I'm Yurad, and thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. And so today we will take a look at the direction where Star Citizen is going, or at least is trying to go. As mentioned in the introduction, the game has been in development for over 10 years now, and in the eyes of people who may not necessarily be following the project, its development and everything it involves might understandably be difficult to grasp, which is why I am making this video with the aim of giving the best possible explanation to the widest possible audience. So please stay until the end, because this is going to be a lot to cover, and this is also going to be a long one. Also, if you like my content, please don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button and like the video, as it is the best thing you can do to help it gain some traction. You may also share with your friends if you think that they might learn something from it, or also join me on my different social hubs such as Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Instagram, or Dailymotion to expand the conversation. Alright, so the latest thing that Star Citizen has achieved by the time I'm making this video is full persistence, which is a tech that the studio is calling persistent entity streaming. And with the release of Star Citizen Alpha 3.18, we will only have the very first iteration of the tech, which is planned to undergo several upgrades, which will then make it robust enough to record and render data of player-generated content for as long as it does not get modified in-game. This is where Chris Roberts, the founder of the project, likes to come in and talk about his coffee mug, which he would drop in the forest only to be able to find it exactly as it was at the same place several days later. Now, that is one of many possible examples one could think of. For example, we could think of a player who would stash some stolen goods to wait until his situation cools down a bit. A few days later, once people would have given up on finding the stolen goods, the thief would return to his stash and find his stolen items. That is, of course, if no one would have found them before his return. This also applies to mineable resources, which would remain where a player would have pin-pound them, or wrecks, which would remain until they would eventually decay and slowly become one with their environments. Of course, such persistence may seem like a common feature in a single-player sandbox game, but Star Citizen aims at being a massively multiplayer online game with a live service, and the tech to offer this level of persistence for a live service game is just something that has never been achieved before, making persistent entity streaming a major technological breakthrough, a breakthrough that, believe it or not, is just a pawn in the grander scheme that is the development of Star Citizen, because the reason it is being developed is because it happens to be a prerequisite to the next major tech that needs to be developed to make Star Citizen a reality, and that technology is server meshing. So, server meshing is, on paper at least, the ultimate piece of technology that's missing to make out of the Star Citizen vision a reality. The goal of server meshing is to allow for a seamless transition of data from one server to another. And by data, this includes your character, your ship, your ongoing mission, your inventory. Basically, everything that you would bring with you would have to be transferred into another server without you or the people with you or around you realizing it. It sounds insane, impossible, And it is, or at least it has been, but it could not always be because, as I am writing these lines, work on making server meshing a reality for Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 has already started, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cloud Imperial Games would show us an early working prototype this year during the CitizenCon demo. At first, server meshing is only going to be realized in a basic iteration. It will only be able to mesh a server containing an entire stellar system, Stanton in this case, with another one, Pyro, that we have been waiting for 3 years now. The reason why they need server meshing to deliver the Pyro system is because one single stellar system is already too much for a server. Right now, with Star Citizen Alpha 3.18, servers already get saturated over time, especially as players spread across the Stanton system, which causes lower server frame performance and inexorably leads to the server's downfall, leaving players to experience the all-so-dreaded Error 30,000 or 30k, which makes them lose their recent game progress and forces them to restart the game client. With server meshing, that should eventually become a thing of the past, because that tech will be accompanied by what Cloud Imperial Game calls the replication layer, which is going to replicate the data of your game character and transfer that data to another server. That is how your character will transfer from a Stanton server to a Pyro server, but it is also how your character will transfer from a dead Stanton system to another, fresher server, which should effectively eliminate the hindrance of experiencing a server crash. But server meshing won't just allow for the implementation of new star systems. It should also allow players to interact with far more other players than they currently can, and that again will be thanks to the replication layer that will come with it. What this will allow will be the replication of another player's data from another server into your server. For example, you could find yourself in a situation in which you could be attacked by a player, but that player would be in a different server. The replication layer would then tell you that the player would be there, that it would also shoot at you, and as you would fight back, the data you would send to your server would be replicated to the other player's server, where they would in return see you fight them back. This is how Cloud Imperial Games are hoping to have shards or instances where thousands of players would be able to interact with one another at the same time, and this is how Cloud Imperial Games envisions future large-scale battles to occur, because in the future, servers won't just be limited to containing an entire star system. A server could be a planet, a sector in space, a city, a district, a building, or even a capital ship. We could therefore find ourselves in a situation when a fully crewed capital ship would be placed in a server and then would seamlessly be fighting another fully crewed capital ship placed in another server, while fighters would be dogfighting outside in a third server without anyone realizing that they would be in different servers. And that technology is going to help the studio multiply the location players will be able to visit too. For example, thanks to server meshing, buildings will potentially be their own servers, which means that the developers will have the chance to create their interiors at a scale that has never been seen before. Buildings will be filled with habitation space, office space, recreational space such as restaurants or shops, but also production facilities, which will be quite useful to make out of R-Corp the factory planet that it is supposed to be. And why just stopping at the landing zones we currently have? Server meshing will also Cloud Imperial Games to multiply settlements at will, allowing for the creation of minor cities or villages scattered across the entirety of a planet's surface. As mentioned earlier, server meshing is also what will allow the studio to integrate up to 100 star systems into the game's universe, each system potentially being its own server, which leads us to the next thing Star Citizen is trying to achieve, the creation of an entire explorable universe made up to 100 star systems. As I am making this video, it is true that the idea of Star Citizen featuring 100 star systems for us to explore seems ludicrous at best. After all, the game has been in development for over 10 years at this point, and we still only have access to only one star system, Stanton, while the second one, Paro, is quite close to be done, and the third one, Nyx, is still on the way. However, it is important to keep in mind that just like they did for Space Station, or what they are doing for building interiors now, the developers have spent their time creating tools that will allow them to procedurally generate entire star systems with just a few clicks. Then they would have to finalize them manually with some additional main art to give them some flair, but it shouldn't take them too long to pump one system after another, especially once server meshing is out. The most time-consuming assets to make are the landing zones, because they feature unique buildings and architectural styles that help them distinguish a world from another, like for example what we will see on Terra, Centauri or Tengagora. However, not every star system is going to feature such elaborate landing zones. In fact, some star systems will not be inhabited at all and will be quite boring for most players, and these are the systems that we can assume will come out quickly. The other systems that may release soon after Paro could be those that we will see in Squadron 42, the single-player campaign based in the Star Citizen universe. Now, we don't know when Squadron 42 will release, although there are rumors that it could be for 2024, but we know for sure that the campaign does take place in the Odin system, so we should see Odin released in the Persistent universe by the time Squadron 42 is out. There are also signs of a small portion of the game that could take place in the Vega system, so Vega being released with Squadron 42 could be a possibility as well. So, having 100 star systems sounds fantastic, but what are we going to do in such a gigantic game universe? Sure, we'll probably have access to some of the generic missions that we have right now in the game. We'll definitely be able to trade, as trading is expected to be one of the main sources of emergent gameplay, with players mounting pirate ambushes to seize riches from merchants, while those merchants will then hire escorts and crewmen to ensure the security. But what I think will provide the most interesting form of gameplay in all of those systems will be player-owned properties, because yes, players will be able to acquire and manage different sorts of properties in Star Citizen in the future. The most basic of properties players will be able to own will be habitation modules, or a house. This is where players will be able to store collectible items they will have as souvenirs from their adventures in the verse. It will also be a place where inventory items will be kept, because in the future a new inventory system will replace the one that we currently have, which currently spawns and despawns the item that we use. In the future, everything will be physicalized and will need to be stored somewhere, and a player-owned habitation module will just be that. However, players certainly won't be able to store everything in their houses, and items like a cargo container or a ship certainly won't fit in those, which is why players will also be given the opportunity to own their own hangar, which Clan Imperial Games have been selling since the very beginning of the project back in 2012. If you look at your ships in your web hangar page, you will also be able to see that each ship is associated with a hangar that you will own along with a ship. Now, whether players will have just one hangar per ship or one hangar for all still remains to be seen, but one thing for sure is that Clan Imperial Games have been working on them for quite some time, as they have appeared on the roadmap for quite some time now. Of course, further down the line, players won't just be limited to owning a house or hangar, but it was also confirmed in an episode of Inside Star Citizen about the upcoming resource management system that players will be able to own production facilities. As of right now, we don't know what these would be. We know that it will be possible to own ships that will be able to refine materials at a small scale, but eventually we'll be able to do that with our very own production facilities. In fact, we've known for a very long time that we'll be able to own a production facility. Clan Imperial Games even sold some land claims many years ago that are going to secure their owners an exclusive ownership over a certain area of land on a planetary body of their choosing. In an episode of Inside Star Citizen dedicated to resource management system, we saw some assets made for ground-based refinery, and Jared Huckabee did imply that one day we'll be able to own such refineries. But why stopping at refineries when there are so many other commodities that can be produced in the verse, such as food, liquor, steams, medical supplies, and probably weapon, armor, ship components in the future as well? However, these land claims probably won't be limited to the ownership of production facilities. Players will also be able to transform them into homesteads, which at some point could act as their main residence in the game, and that will be done with the addition of habitation modules. They will also be able to buy and sell resources there too, and that will be with trade terminals, and will probably also have the ability to store cargo and ships, but I believe that these will be done on the ground. Last but not least, players will be able to run space stations too. Unfortunately, we were never told that we will be able to build our own station, although that would be awesome. However, Chris Roberts did say on multiple occasions that at some point he would like to allow players to fight for the control of a select number of space stations. Such space stations would also a pledge goal back in the days that appeared during the extended funding campaign, but have yet to be materialized with a concrete game experience. However, we might very well see such stations as early as in Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 and the introduction of the Pyro system, where we know that there will be some abandoned rest stops as well as a number of derelict stations. I think that it's really important to pay attention here to the wording, because abandoned and derelicts are not the same. A derelict station would definitely be a useless ruin, but an abandoned station would still be functional with working equipment, and therefore could be of some value to an org that would be interested in establishing a strong presence in its sector, a little bit like what the Nightels are doing around Yela with Grimex. But for player-owned property to become a reality, there is another feature that needs to be finished, and that Cloud Imperium Games are working on as I am making this video, and that feature is the resource management system. To make it short, the resource management system is what will manage every resource in the game. It is what will make an asset consume energy to operate. It is what will make an industry consume materials for production. It is also what will determine if an asset is powered or functional based on its state, or the state on the item that it depends on. It is also why the resource management system will open up the way to new professions such as engineering or mechanics. Not only will players have to make sure that their bases or ships will be in proper condition, but they will also have to repair them if not. I suspect that the resource management system will also play a key role with the abandoned stations, especially when it comes to being able to make them operational again, or even sabotage them to take control of them. There is definitely going to be a big emphasis on engineering gameplay, as shown in a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen, and a good knowledge of how the resource management system will probably be key to being able to keep or gain control of such a sought-after facility. Of course, one may be wondering at this stage what would be the point of all of that. Why would players even want to control a production facility? And that the answer here is the dynamic economy that Chris Roberts and especially Tony Zurovec have been planning since the very start of the project, because at some point the economy of Star Citizen won't just be about buying X commodity at X price and then resell it at X at Y price somewhere else. In the future, we will be able to manufacture these commodities just like how we can mine now and resell the ore after refining it. And at that point, thanks to a tool that Tony Zurovec has been creating for years called Quantum, all of the game prices will depend on the supply and demand of the game, and this is where things get really interesting. Say you have a facility that's producing stims, for example, and you are the only one in your planetary system making stims. Stims will be in high demand, and you'll be able to sell your production at a high price. Now, say several other players decide to also build a steam production facility at the same area. Supply becomes far higher, and then the demand collapses as well as the prices too, and business becomes difficult. What do players do then? Well, they tried to reduce the Sims production, but of course not theirs. This is where the resource management system would be perfect to sabotage a competitor's production by cutting their supply lines or even infiltrate them to ruin their physical components. As you can see, everything is at some point going to be linked. The resource management system, the facilities, the economy, all of that will be made to work in symbiosis and make what the Star Citizen universe is one day going to be. The other notable aspect of Star Citizen that really makes it stand out from other games is its visual fidelity. Star Citizen aims at being as photorealistic as it can be, and this has often come at the price of performance, as low frame rates have often been one of the main reasons people have been complaining over the past couple of years. Well, here again, progress is being made, especially with the latest update, patch alpha 3.18, which completely updates the graphics of the game thanks to the implementation of Gen 12 renderer. But Gen 12 is just an intermediary step because there are massive changes to come in the form of Vulkan, which is going to focus on how light is being diffused throughout the game, and even further down the line, a potential VR, virtual reality support following that, due to the fact the developers in charge of the graphics of the game are themselves big virtual reality enthusiasts, something that they have said on multiple occasions. Spectrum is another element of Star Citizen that is going to change in the future. Right now, it's either a holomap prop at Area 18 or a forums platform on the official website robotspaceindustries.com, but eventually it will be dynamically integrated into the game, meaning that it will be possible for someone in-game to browse the forums or the live chat and read or post while also traveling in quantum space, for example. And that would be very interesting because travel time in Star Citizen can be quite long, and having something to do during those trips or long periods of time would make these travel sequences far less tedious than they currently are. Last but not least, we could also finish this video without talking about gameplay as well, right? What we'll be able to do in Star Citizen. Well, right now there are already quite a few gameplay loops available. Sure, they are nowhere their final state, but they do give us an indication about what will come later. As of Star Citizen 3.18, players can trade, do combat in space or also on foot. They can also explore, they can mine, they can be a pirate, they can salvage, they can hunt bounties, they can do deliveries, they can be a medic, they can race, they can infiltrate facilities, they can even pick up trash. But in the future, in addition to production facilities, players will be able to also transport passengers, tow ships, lay or pick up mines, they will be able to build bases, and I probably forgot something there, so if I did, please let me know in the comment section down below. As you can see, the ambitions of Star Citizen is not just being a space sim. In fact, we can have a really great time in Star Citizen without ever going to space at all or even fly a ship. What Star Citizen tries to be is a comprehensive universe simulator in which everyone will find something to do that they like, and all of that being in a seamless experience without any loading screen and with thousands of players around you. The scope of the project is truly spectacular, unlike anything that we have seen before, which is why it takes a lot of time to, sometimes too much time, as some people would say. But that is the heavy price to pay to one day being able to roam in a comprehensive universe that no other game company has ever dared creating before. And it is also the reason why the project has the support that it has had, gathering over $500 million in crowdfunding. And mark my words, I wouldn't be surprised if by the time Cloud Imperium Games finally releases a 1.0 version, we would have reached the $1 billion mark, given how much there is to be done still. With that comes the end of this video. A big thanks to you if you have made it until the end. I do not normally make scripted videos this long, so if you enjoyed it, please like the video as well. It really helps a lot with the channel. Also, if it made you feel like trying Star Citizen, you will find my referral code in the pinned comment section down below as well, which will grant you 5,000 UEC once you get a game package. And also, if you would like to add anything, don't hesitate to drop a comment as well. I would love to read about what you think Cloud Imperiums will do after Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 drops. Also, for more regular Star Citizen and gaming content, please consider hitting the subscribe button. You can even go the extra mile by supporting the channel via the YouTube Joe membership program or Patreon like Dr. Forbin, Zio Crusher, Wolfpack Pug, or Deplorable Infidel. I've been Irad, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.